Welcome everybody. My name is Alan Gerard. I'm the Eastern Shore Director with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I'm here to welcome you to the Talbot County Council Candidate Forum on the Environment. This is a program that is co-sponsored by Chesapeake Bay Foundation and the League of Women Voters Mid-Shore. Very happy to put this program on for you tonight. We also have this program being videotaped by our friends at Mid-Shore Community Television. This is a unit of the Avalon Foundation, great partners of ours. We're hoping that viewers at home will be able to see about what you're about to experience tonight. A little bit about the program. All of the candidates for Talbot County Council have been invited to participate. We've got a good slew of them here. There have been a couple that have unresolvable conflicts that were not able to make it. It's important to note that the sponsors of this program, both CBF and the League of Women Voters Mid-Shore, are not able to support or endorse any candidates for office, but we are able to educate people about the issues. So on your chair, hopefully you found what we call a rack card or a palm card, I heard it's called the other day. I didn't know it was called that, but this little piece of a trifold that says 5 actions your next elected officials can do for clean water. This is something that we are circulating around the state. Anybody that's running for local office is getting a copy of this just to help guide folks in their thinking about the issues on the environment and what sorts of policy choices are available as a candidate for office to be considering as you become elected. Encourage you to check that out. On the back there is information about how to vote. Make sure that you're registered to vote. If you go to cbf.org/mdforums, there's more information there that you can check out. Really want people to participate in this year's election, and that's pretty important. Let's see, I'm going to have the candidates introduce themselves in a moment, but I do want to introduce you to our moderator this evening. John Griep is here with us. He is with the Star Democrat. He's the editor there, been doing it quite a while. And we've asked John to come and moderate the program for us. He's going to walk us through the agenda and lead the rest of the evening. You do have a copy of the agenda on your chair as well. If you flip it over to the back, folks may not be aware there's a second side there. There are instructions or guidelines for how to participate as an audience member. There will be opportunities to submit questions on note cards to the candidates later. A little bit of instruction here in your form, and John will guide us on that as well. So I'll turn it over to John Griep so we can meet our candidates.
All right, thank you, Alan, and thank the Bay Foundation and the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this, and the library for having us. Just go over the format real quickly. So each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We'll start here with Mr. Callahan, and then we'll go down the row. And then we will start with questions from myself and from the audience. For the questions, you have 1 minute to respond. The first question will go to the video, and then we'll go down and Mr. Callahan. Each question will move down to the next person to be the first one speaking. The library's asked me if everyone could please take a seat. They prefer you to come in and sit down, please. Let's see. We do have, they're taking questions, so if you have questions, write them on your note card, and they'll take them right over here, and they'll bring those up to me.
Raise your hand.
All right. And unlike the last forum I did, when I was keeping the time, someone else is keeping the time. You're going to yellow card at 30 seconds, I believe. And then when the time's up, you're going to get a red card, just like soccer. So, 2 for the intro. Right, so we'll start with Mr. Callahan. Will you do your opening statement?
Good evening, everybody. I want to thank the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and the League of Women Voters for putting this on for us tonight. My name is Chuck Callahan. I'm running for re-election for my second term. Just tell you a little bit about me and where I've and what I'm about to people that don't know me. So I'm born and raised in Easton. Lived out by the airport, grew up out by the airport, and and started in business with my dad. He's a contractor. I took over his business. And we've got 3 businesses. I've been with the company now 33 years, and I've run the company and everything. So I've got my youngest son. He's in the business now. Clark. I have 2 sons. They come from Easton High School, and they graduated 2 years ago. And so my oldest one's got everybody's dream job. He drives a beer truck. Okay, so everybody likes to do that. So, but anyway, one of the biggest accomplishments that I've done, I feel like in Talbot County, I'm a volunteer fireman. I've been in the fire department for 30 years, and I've spent a lot of time volunteer my service for Talbot County. And I feel like that between that, the business that I'm running, and the qualifications that I give the county and everything that I've done for the county in the last 4 years, I think I've done a great job. I've worked very hard for you guys, and I think the council has accomplished a lot of things for you guys, especially Chesapeake Bay Foundation. We've really looked out for them. I think we've done a great job, and we'll get into that, but we've done some special things. So that's Chuck Callahan, and I'd like to have your vote. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for coming out. My name is Frank Tavillio. I am new for running for election for the Talbot County Council. I am from Easton, graduated from Easton High School, went down to Salisbury University, came back after graduation. I have an insurance office that's up in Centerville. I've got 2 young boys that go to Chapel District Elementary School out in Cordova, and I'm married. I'm very fortunate. I love being from Talbot County. I love all the resources that we have, and my 2 kids, we are out all the time enjoying everything from the Bellevue Beach to my youngest son today was on a field trip at Pickering Creek out catching tadpoles. Can't wait to go home and see those. But my goal for running for Talbot County Council is to just make sure that this county is around and stable for all of us here, for my kids, myself, and my parents' generation. And my parents are still here as well and retired and enjoying it happily. So I want to make sure that it stays safe, that it stays clean, and that it's a viable option for all generations. My name is Frank Tavillio, Talbot County Council. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keisha Hates. I am a native of Talbot County and have been here pretty much all my life, born and raised here in Talbot County. And I've been in the government field, working in economic development for 17 years. Prior to that, I spent some time in banking here in Easton under someone that everyone knows, Buck Duncan, who used to be the president of St. Michael's Bank. But I am running for Talbot County Council this year, and one of my platforms is the environment. And under the environment, being a waterman's granddaughter, I understand that the waters that we fish is the livelihood of Talbot County. And with that, I believe that environmental stewardship is important to us. We want to ensure that we have clean waters. We want to ensure that our agriculture is still viable, and also that our watermen have a way of life. So I am committed to tackling those issues and committed to making sure that our waters are clean and that we promote things like agri-tech and aqua-tech. And there are businesses here and organizations here that are subject matter experts in the environment. And I believe that we need to glean information from those subject matter experts and bring them to the table as a council representative to hear how we can promote and have environmental stewardship in Talbot County. So I am committed to working with individual organizations like the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, Phillips Wharf, Environmental Concern. There's a number of entities, not only in Talbot County, but throughout the state and the nation. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Naomi Hyman, and I am also a candidate for Talbot County Council. And I'm running for County Council because I believe that every member of our community deserves to be heard, respected, and well represented. And included in members of our community is our bay, our countryside, and our environment in general. I'm not going to say much about my biography. I'm happy to answer those questions if you have them, except to say that I have a 30-year history of working on environmental issues, including work to preserve the redwoods in Northern California and to clean up the Hudson. And I am the editor of one book on spirituality and the environment and a contributor to another. My environmental priorities are to protect and restore our waterways, to conserve our countryside, and to prepare for the consequences of climate change. I want to talk a little less about specifics and more about the values that I will bring to the deliberations as I hope to be as your council person. I take my first one from the medical profession. First, do no harm. Second, to prioritize long-term impact over short-term gain. And finally, to ensure that private benefits don't result in public costs, financial or otherwise. I promise to educate as well as legislate and to represent with as much integrity all of the stakeholders in our county as possible. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Pete Lesher. Thank you, John. Thank you, League of Women Voters. Thank you, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, for putting this on tonight. I'm Pete Lesher. I've served on Eastern Sound Council for the past 9 years, where I have a strong record on downtown revitalization, on anti-sprawl land use policies, on the implementation of curbside recycling, on support for energy conservation policies, on urban stormwater quality improvement projects, and a strengthened tree program on municipal lands and streets. I've worked at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum for the past 27 years, inspiring people to fall in love with this region so that they become better stewards of this place and its culture. I'm married here. I have 2 wonderful children here in the Talbot County Public Schools. And I'm committed to leaving Talbot County a better place to live and work and retire. So how do we make Talbot County make sure that Talbot County remains such a special place for us and for generations to follow? First and foremost, we need to protect the rural character of this place. Rural character is valuable in economic terms, as I know from my experience in the heritage tourism industry. It's part of the magic that lures people to visit us, to relax, to get away from all the noise and sprawl and frenetic pace on the other side of the bay. Protecting rural character also supports property values of our homes. The comprehensive plan and the zoning code are our chief tools to strengthen to defend these measures. I also care about water quality. With over 600 miles of shoreline, with seafood harvesting and water-dependent recreational industries around here, we've got vital interests in good water quality. The county is doing some important work to improve water quality, both in terms of regulation and in terms of its own actions, in terms of its ditch programs. I will continue that. Thank you very much.
Word?
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Corey Pack. I'm current Vice President of Talbot County Council. I'm on my 3rd term, running for my 4th term. My lovely wife Maria is here with me. She said last time I was before you all, I didn't basically introduce myself, I just started talking. So let me tell you those a little bit about my background who may not know me or about me. As I said, I'm currently in my 3rd term, running for my 4th term on the council. I've served 3 terms as council president, 2 terms as council vice president. I'm a graduate from the University of Delaware with a degree in criminal justice. I am a 25-year veteran of the Maryland Department of Public Safety. 15 of those years I've served in management. I am the former president of the Talbot County, the full president of the Talbot County Neighborhood Service Center Board. I'm the former president of the Talbot County Partnership, which is our local advocate on substance abuse. I was appointed by both Governor O'Malley and Governor Hogan to serve on the Criminal Justice Information Advisory Board, which is a statewide board looking at criminal justice matters. I was appointed by the Deputy Secretary of Public Safety and Criminal Justice to the Opioid Operational Command Center, which is housed out of MEMA in Westminster, and we're governing 26 separate state agencies to look at the opioid problem. I'm also an inductee to the Maryland Football Foundation and former football coach right here in Talbot County. I'm a fellow of the Maryland School of Local Governance. I'm a liaison to the Talbot County Fire and Rescue Association. I'm a former character counts coach. And I am invested solely into this community, as you can tell by my associations and by my involvement. My passion is the people. My passion is to serve. I've always termed myself as a servant leader. I don't mind being called a servant. I'm here for you in any capacity that you may need. So I'm Corey Pack, and I'm asking for your vote.
See if we've got one that works. Hi, I'm Laura Price, and I want to thank everybody for being here, the candidates, the sponsors for having us, but most especially to you, the public, for being so interested and invested in this process and how important it is to get out there and be an informed voter. I am currently running for my third term on the Talbot County Council, and since I'm a native of Talbot County, I remain committed to preserving the rural atmosphere of this county, encouraging appropriate economic growth, prioritizing public safety, and providing effective and needed services to the citizens of the county, all while maintaining a stable financial base and keeping our taxes low. My husband and I, as small business owners of Ship and Print Place, are also the parents of 2 sons who graduated from Easton High School, and they're also Eagle Scouts and in college and med school now. We definitely value the sense of community here. And while it's rewarding to talk about our past accomplishments like the comprehensive plan and all the other things that we've done as the last 2 terms, what I want to talk about is what we need to do going forward and why I'm committed to being part of that process. Economic development is improving, but we still have work to do. Our working citizens continue to earn about 20% below the state average, and we'd like to close that gap. And that effort is one I will pursue here and as a member of the board of the Maryland Association of Counties, where I have served as your legislative liaison for the last 4 years. And recently, the council passed a ballot question, the penny plan, to increase the revenue cap. Yes, I'm going to talk taxes, even though it's an environmental debate. To go from 2 to 2.5% and add a penny for 4 years to the property value per 100 property value. And that will strengthen our emergency services and our capital projects. And now it's up to you, the voters, to support the ballot question to help keep us on solid fiscal footing. I welcome your support of my candidacy, and I will make the same promises to you that I've made before. I will ask questions, I will listen to you, I will discuss with you the information I've gathered, and I will always vote to support your best interests. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. First question goes to Mr. DeVillio. If elected to serve on the next council, how would you balance growth and protecting the environment?
I think the best way to balance growth and by protecting the environment is working within what we've done or what we've established for the county. Sticking with the certain areas where we have industrial parks that are just sitting there vacant. I've been pushing for that at all the forums. I keep bringing that up. Looking at the industrial parks that were farms that have been converted into an industrial park that are just sitting there empty, that we're waiting, hoping that somebody would just come here and start a business and use. I'd rather see us utilize those as quickly as we can, go out and start finding businesses in the Montgomery County and the DC sector that we can bring over here that are clean growth. I think that we've got great access to many resources. We've got plenty of employees that are ready to go. We've got great school systems and affordable housing. And I think that if we keep the growth within those areas that we've already designated, then I see it as a balance.
All right, so I guess I'd have to agree with Frank. Same thing. We have land that is commercially zoned in regards to economic development, and that commercially zoned land, such as business parks out by the airport and other land that's commercially zoned, that is where commercial development needs to go. We need to also make sure that our long-range planning is in line with balancing growth and make sure that we are ensuring that the development is going in the designated zoned areas.
To manage growth, what we need to do is follow what is said in the comprehensive plan and stick to it and not deviate from what is stated there. Let me give you an example of a couple of things from that plan. Most new residential, institutional, commercial, and business and industrial development should be located in designated growth areas in the incorporated towns. Village zoning densities shall support the primary goal of the plan to preserve existing rural character, and sensitive environmental areas shall be protected or mitigated on site to the greatest extent possible. If elected, I will ensure to the best of my ability that the vision of the plan is adhered to. Thank you.
In some ways, balancing economic growth and the environment is a false choice. We have to do both. Our rural character is in fact one of our most valuable economic development assets. Much of our economy is already dependent on Talbot County's perception as a haven from overdevelopment and characterless sprawl. We need to continue to capitalize on it. We need to protect that in order to protect our economic base here. Sprawl development may yield short-term benefits for some, but at a long-term cost to our county, and a cost that will continue eating at public funds in perpetuity. It is a path we cannot afford to go down. When it comes to agriculture, we need to make sure that we help our farming community meet those requirements. We need to ensure that farming remains viable, and that farms remain the dominant land use on the landscape in Talbot County.
Before you go, Mr. Pack, we have a request. As each candidate stands up to answer the question, please give your name for people who may not be able to see you. Thanks.
John, can I ask that you reread the question? Was it dealing with economic growth or just growth? Some of them.
Growth in general. If elected to serve on the next council, how would you balance growth and protecting the environment?
Okay, some of the members answered it across the commercial side of it. I think Naomi answered correctly in saying that the comprehensive plan is already there, which is our pathway when it comes to future growth in the county. We also have a resolution that this council passed early this year, which is Resolution 250, which talks about the sewer line, which is going down into the Nevitt and Bosman corridor. So those plans, which were very heavily discussed, very heavily publicized, very heavily worked by the council and by the planning staff, was our pathway as far as how we do that, how we make that balance a true growth centers, and also keeping the rich heritage and character existing in those areas. So the plan is there. I think we just need to, as Naomi said, I would certainly agree with it, stick to it. We put a lot of work into it. It's just been around for a year, maybe a year and a half now. So that's your plan, and you need to hold this council and the next council to it.
I'm Laura Price, and absolutely, the comprehensive plan is the Bible of Talbot County, and that's the overarching goals and what we want to see in the character of Talbot County. And then the zoning. The zoning is what backs it up. And we just got done with that. That was a 2-year process. And we have to run these sewer lines because we want to clean up the environment. That's very critically important. But that sewer line doesn't mean that that's where you want to then direct all kinds of dense growth. We need to direct that growth to the towns and places where we already have infrastructure. And when we're running these sewer lines, it's to clean up the environment and to allow people to improve their homes. And I just want to give a shout out to those who were supportive and let us know how very important it was, the amendment that we passed, number 4, about the density, or the sewer does not create additional density, because that is the best way to protect the environment in the very fragile areas that we have, especially in the Bay 100 area.
Chuck Callahan. I would agree. We've got a great comprehensive plan. I think there's not a person in here that doesn't like the richest of the county. I've had many heritage here. And one of our best accomplishments, I feel as a council, is what Mr. Pack was saying. What we've done with 250 to get water and sewer down to Bosman, that's huge. And I think us as a council and all the ditch water programs that we're doing for the Bay is very important. So I feel we're doing a great job, and just like Mrs. Price says, the comprehensive plan is something that we're going to go by. We're going to really look at it hard for the next 4 years, and we're going to obey by it, because that's what the people want. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question will begin with Keisha Haith. What are 2 initiatives you would undertake to shape Talbot County economic development toward less polluting use of its natural resources with value-added products and services and living wages? Sure. It's a lengthy one. What are 2 initiatives you would undertake to shape Talbot County economic development towards less polluting use of its natural resources with value-added products and services and living wages?
Okay, that's a long question. But anyway, I will tackle that. So there's an organization here in Talbot County called Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center. And they have a great initiative. I serve on their board. They have a great initiative called the F3 Tech. And that recent program that we are developing is an accelerator program, but it is promoting value-added products. So we have individuals that are interested to come into Talbot County to do agri-tech and aqua-tech right here in Talbot County. So that is your clean economic development, and that's what we're working on right now. We just had a board meeting last night. There are great things on the horizon that I really can't share, but there are clean economic development projects that they are working on. So I encourage you guys to look up the Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center and F3 Tech. Thank you.
I'm Naomi Hyman. I agree with Keisha that agri-tech and aquaculture are important directions for us to go, but I would also like to see us be supportive of green energy initiatives. And by that, I don't just mean installation of green energy facilities, but also providing training for the people who will install and service those facilities. High-tech, high-skilled jobs that will pay a living wage while helping our county and our nation to become energy independent. Thank you.
So two areas where we can help this happen: economic development, low impact, more environmental benefit. Certainly, our tourism industry is dependent on this, although I'm not sure that it always passes the test for living wages. That's a big problem in the tourism industry. It is a service industry. But we have some industries here. We've got a basis of a couple of industries here that we can grow in this community that are providing good jobs, and which we are growing and will continue to do them. One is the medical sector, and our cooperation between the town and the county with Shore Health to build a new medical center is going to create more jobs here. The second is in technology, and in helping to attract or to retain companies and help companies to expand, like Afina Pharmaceuticals, by giving them access to water and sewer, by eliminating the manufacturing equipment excise tax. We can help continue to lure businesses like this to Talbot County.
Okay, read a long question. And I also serve on the ESAC board that Keisha referenced with Scott Warner. And they are doing some amazing things when it comes to promoting clean energy development and entrepreneurship here in Talbot County, but also in the metro area. So I want to give a big hats off to Scott Warren and his group for doing that. Sam Shoke is economic development person here in Talbot County. And one of the things that we implemented was a grant that we can give to businesses that can use that grant to make their business more energy efficient, I should say. So that's one way which the county is not only taking care of the environment, but also helping businesses grow and sustain themselves and get credit for taking part in that grant. Cassandra Van Hooser was our tourism director. You notice that the former Black & Decker building is now in the Talbot County Business Center. Well, we've been leasing space out in that building so that small businesses can continue growing and stay here in Talbot County, and also larger ones. We also have the Welding Group who's been in there, and I have to quit, who's been in there, and they're also occupying more than 50% of that space as well. Thank you.
Laura Price. Yes, that question was definitely a mouthful. I really think that it all comes down to the high-tech jobs, and the two things that we need to do is to continue to partner with our public schools and Chesapeake College to make sure that our children are being trained to do jobs here, but to do higher tech jobs in there. And one of the things that goes along with that, and that would be my number 2, is to continue to work on getting broadband access. It is definitely a challenge with the long fingers in Talbot County, and we are trying to put some fiber and things in as we're laying down those sewer lines and have that in there. The biggest challenge, of course, is the last mile, but I think those two things, training our children and getting the broadband access, is what's going to help create the high-tech jobs that we need that pay so much better than some of the other jobs that are in the county. And real quick, so the county has done some initiatives. It's not necessarily about jobs, but we certainly have more than exceeded our energy efficiency with getting electric cars, and we have our windmills and things like that, where we are spending a lot less on electricity by using other renewable energy. Thank you, Mr. Pack.
Yeah, Chuck Callahan. So yeah, I was getting ready to say the same thing. I think it's really important, number one, is that all the kids that are coming out of the high school, that we sort of provide a job and initiatives to them so they can live and work here. And one of the bigger things is to live here. So I know we're working on, and this is not really the subject, but we're working on trying to make affordable housing. That's going to be something that's going to be big for the council. But yes, we've taken a lot of initiatives out to the business park to put everybody in there and create jobs and stuff like that out there to the business park. And I'm proud of that. So it's been good to do that. Thanks.
I think the two to really push would be biotech and agritech. When you hear about a business in town, there's a group who realize that there's a lot of chicken manure and we need to do something with that. And if they're able to take that manure and turn it into clean energy, they're also the same group that phosphorus, when there's too much phosphorus on the fields, then instead of letting it get washed off into the bay, they're able to mine that and take that off the ground, take it away from the Chesapeake Bay, from this whole region, and take it to other areas that are low on phosphorus so that their crops can grow. We've got a lot of great resources here. We've got excellent graduates who are coming back to this area that want to work here. And I think fiber optics is probably one of the biggest things that's a drawback for bringing business here. And if we can expand that, that will be great. But the two industries I think that would really provide clean, good paying jobs would be agritech and biotech, which are both growing industries.
Thank you. Oyster aquaculture provides jobs in Talbot County and cleans the water in our rivers. What will you do to promote this and similar businesses in Talbot County? Naomi Hyman.
We have an outstanding team of people working to bring business here and to encourage it. I would support the efforts that are happening there. I would support encouragement. I am a new oyster eater. I am not alone in this. So I think that seeing the ways that oysters not only benefit us at supporting that, but to also create new markets for people who have oyster issues like me, and also for people who have concerns that oysters are no longer a clean food to eat. So I would see working from both directions to encouraging aquaculture business, but also encouraging a market where perhaps there hasn't been a market before. Thank you.
Pete Lesher.
Pete Letcher. Aquaculture is a challenging industry to get into. I've seen a few people doing this in certainly neighboring counties. There are big challenges in terms of permitting both in the state and the federal level. We can and should help people jump through those hoops. But what aquaculture needs more than anything else is clean water to thrive in. They simply can't do this in waters that aren't healthy. And so we need to do our part to continue the clean water initiatives in this county, whether it is ag, whether it is septics, whether it is stormwater, or the sewer projects. All of those need to be working together to make sure that we have clean waters for aquaculture, for the existing waterman's industry that are harvesting off the natural bars and other seafood in these waters, as well as for waterborne recreation. We need clean water for all these reasons.
I saw a report from Beacon. Scott Warner, who is a Midshore representative, president of our Midshore Council, commissioned a report from Beacon which looked at aquaculture in the state of Maryland, and I'm trying to grab the numbers right now, but I think it's somewhere around a $3 billion industry here in the state of Maryland, somewhere around 36 million here in the Midshore area. So it is a very important part of who we are and what we are. So working with Mr. Harrison and the Watermen's Association to make sure this council is doing all that we can to protect our waterways. Our Ray Clark County engineer has been able to get many grant dollars to help with three-step ditch system to put in place, which knocks down some of the runoff onto the roadways, and which will filter down into our streams and tributaries. We've also had a bag system where we put bags on the end of our storm water pipes to collect all of the debris that may be floating into the stream. So we've done some efforts on our part, but there's certainly more work that we need to do.
There's no doubt that oysters are the best filter for the waterways, and we have, I don't remember the number, but like 2% or something crazy like that of what we used to have. So that makes it a challenge. And Phillips Wharf is a great champion for that. I think with it we need to encourage people that live on the waterfront to grow those oysters off the front, and then they can replant them out in other areas in some of the sanctuaries. But we shouldn't forget that our watermen are good stewards, because without the clean water that Mr. Lesher referred to, the oysters wouldn't be there for the new people to eat, Ms. Hyman said. And they do a good job, because when they harvest, they do go back out and replant. And so getting the movement, because you don't just want things to silt in over on top of them. So by working the bottoms a little bit, that does help keep the oysters from dying. So we need a mix of the aquaculture, the sanctuaries, and letting the watermen do their job too.
Yes, Chuck Callahan. I think we need to support the watermen and all the oysters. I mean, that's what Talbot County in hundreds of years ago, that people come here to oyster, and it's a huge heritage. So I think the council is doing everything we can. Probably one of the bigger things is, if somebody wants to get into that business, is being able to, like Mr. Pack said, we've got Sam and Cassandra there to help them get the permitting done if they want to start that business. So I think that's one of the bigger things to try to help them get in business. And that's what we're here for as a council, to start this, because we want the clean water. So thank you.
The oyster industry is it's evolving, and I'm very impressed and happy with it, watching the farm-raised oysters There's a group that they took an old packing plant and they are taking oysters in there, farm raising them, flushing them, and then flavoring them and selling them to different restaurants around. And it's a great idea, it's a great initiative, and very innovative to see that industry change. When I was in high school, I interned at Horn Point, and I thought oysters were the most disgusting animal I'd ever seen, just washing the mud off of them and having to deal with that, until I went out on an oyster boat with a gentleman who showed me, and we went hand tonguing, and I had a blast. I learned a lot about the fines and the regulations that they have to go through, and if you ever have the opportunity to do it, you'll earn it. You'll love those oysters that you do hand tongue up after you do it for an hour and a half and come up with 2. It's a pretty neat experience, but it's part of the Eastern Shore, it's part of the way of life for many people, and I think it's something that needs to be valued, and I'm excited to see it changing and growing.
So I must say that Dorchester County is leading the charge with the most aquaculture businesses in oyster farming, and I'm happy to say that I was a part of that, helping Chesapeake Old Oysters start actually the first aquaculture entity in Dorchester County, and most of it is because of the salinity in the water. So I am a huge supporter of aquaculture. I believe that we can certainly encourage more watermen to go into that particular field, and there is a process to becoming, to getting the permits, but there's an entity called Morbidco that helps aquaculture become viable and help the small businesses that want to go into aquaculture. So there are resources within the state of Maryland, and it is an opportunity for us to grow aquaculture here even the more in Talbot County. So I definitely support that industry, and will continue as a council representative to support that, because it is proven to clean up the Chesapeake Bay.
Thank you. The Watershed Improvement Plan has been reviewed. The Talbot County total maximum daily loads has shown that much needs to be done to meet goals. What will you do as a council member to achieve TMDL goals? Start with Pete Lesher.
We all have a role to play in this. As I mentioned in my earlier answer, there are 4 main inputs that we need to work on. The one where we can make the most progress is in agriculture, in terms of dollars invested for nutrients reduced in our water runoff. We need to make sure that we continue pressing for the implementation of best management practices in agriculture, from buffers to cover crops to nutrient management plans, and sharing where possible the costs for the public benefits that we reap from these policies. We need to share those costs with our farming community, because we all get that benefit, and as I said earlier, we need to make sure that farming remains the predominant land use in this county. The other sources we need to continue to work on as well: the ditch program for stormwater runoff, the best available technologies for septics, and improvements in our various county-owned sewer systems.
Corey Pack.
Yes. I will say I think the county as a whole has done a very good job with our TMD. As I mentioned in my earlier answer, Ray Clark, our county engineer, has been great in going out and finding money, whether it be money that we're getting from with CBF, and using that and taking that money and putting it back into the county. There's small measures in some sense, and Pete mentioned the ditch system that Ray has implemented, where there's a 3-stage runoff, where when a farmer is farming a piece of property, that runoff runs through 3 ditches before it gets into the actual ditch, which is carried out into the waterway. We use money to do that. The bag system that I mentioned before, in Easton, and also I believe down in Oxford, Ray went out and put bags over top of those storm pipes so that all of that pollutant won't run into those cups and straws and things of that nature, will not run into the waterways. So, and we've done many other things too that the town will not allow me to go into. So I think the council as a whole, working through our county engineers, done a very good job in answering our TMDL protocols.
Laura Price.
One of those questions where you're just trying to tag along with everybody else, because I think we're pretty much in agreement. To expand a little bit on the agriculture, What's wonderful about Talbot County is our farmers have, if not the highest, one of the highest number of cover crops in the state. And that is just huge to reduce the amount of phosphorus, nitrogen, and the sediment and all that goes into our waterways. Because if you lose those acres, as Mr. Lesher said, then if it's not agriculture, then it's development. And then development leads to more pollution into the waterways. We talked about systems, the BMPs, the septic tanks. Now we do the VAT systems, the best available technology. And again, Mr. Clark has been able to go out and get a lot of grants for that, but we've been able to now use those to put those dollars into the sewer lines. And as I said earlier in the day, even the best BAT system, the sewer line is like 10, 20 times better in reducing the nitrogen and phosphorus and sediment out of that. So we want to continue to build those sewer lines too, as long as we don't get too much growth.
Chuck Callahan.
Yeah, just to jump on top of that. So I mean, it's like, I think this council's done a great job. I mean, just like I said a little while ago, one of our best accomplishments is getting sewer down to Boston and Nevitt. I mean, to get that done with Ray Clark in the council and Andy Hollis. Andy Hollis is our manager. He's done a good job helping us. In the ditch programs, we've been involved with Alan over the years in helping us with the ditch programs and everything. So, but I'm very proud of being able to accomplish the water and sewer that's going down to Boston. I think that's huge for Talbot County. I think that's one of the ways that we've saved that town. They'll be able to, their property values will go up. They'll be able to, it's going to be able to save a lot of stuff going into the bay, which that's all we want, we could wish for. And just like Ms. Price said, the BAT systems that are required on new construction and stuff is a good way to clean the systems too. I see you, sorry, thanks.
Frank DeVillio.
So we have a lot of the regulations already put in place and the plan is in place. The main thing is when we do these regulations, we take a vote and then discussion stops. My plan would be, the way to help get this out is continue to talk about it. Why did we do this? Why are we trying to, why are we running sewer lines? Why did we come up with a bad system? Why do we recommend riprap instead of bulkheads? Things like that. It's working with great foundations, we're able to get the word out and continue the dialogue of why we're doing this and how we're able to keep this county clean.
Keisha Hayes.
So we know that ag is the #1 industry in the state of Maryland, and the farmers do an excellent job of their management system that they have to do annually for the state of Maryland. But I think, as everyone has stated, or majority of everyone stated, we have to focus on best management practices. Talbot County, as the elected officials have mentioned, they have the ditch system, which we continue to move forward with that. Cover crops certainly is good for the ag industry, and we need to continue to engage subject matter experts, as stated earlier. We have a wealth of knowledge here. If we are elected officials, we need to continue to collaborate and partner with the subject matter experts, listen to them, and formulate a plan. There's always room for improvement, and I think coordinating and communicating with the subject matter experts is the best path forward as well.
Naomi Hyman.
Well, progress has been made, and I do applaud it. I would also like to point out that of the high priority ditch mitigation opportunities, only about 20% of those retrofits have been done. So yes, it's progress, but there's 80% more of the high priority areas that need to be done. And I think we need to think in terms not just of grants, but in terms of investment in our county's future. The other thing that I have great concern about is that the benefits of sewer are not undone by development, which has the potential to create more runoff through impervious surfaces, lawn care chemicals, and even pet waste. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, and this will be with Corey Peck. Why are our waters unsafe for swimming, and how would you work to improve that?
Give me that one right now. Mr. Butler in the back will tell you there's not one waterway in the state of Maryland, not one, that's not impaired. Am I right, Mr. Butler? Every single waterway in the state of Maryland is impaired. Alan? To some degree. So that's a heavy lift. You know, the water, our WIP plan, watershed implementation plan, we've been trying to work it. Yes, we do need more grant dollars. We've got some money from CBF. We've got some other monies that we've been able to put into place. There's just not enough money to go around. You know what's happening up north of us in the Conowingo Dam. If you watch any of the news stories when that storm came through and you saw that debris and those branches and all that other stuff that came down the Chesapeake Bay and went into various streams and rivers, so you know what we're dealing with. So it's not just cleaning up your own backyard, but when your neighbor to the north, Pennsylvania, and New York, and New Jersey, are dumping stuff into their rivers and it's coming down to us, it's like, you know, trying to hold back a storm, and that's what it is at some point. So it's a big lift, is what I'm trying to say.
Should I just continue with your sentence, Mr. Pack? Yeah, all the things that we just talked about in the last question, the TMDLs, the VMPs, the best available technologies, all of those things, and doing what we can for our own local rivers and bay. But that Conowingo Dam is the 500-pound elephant, or bigger, basically they weigh more than that, in the room. And I'm really happy that this governor has recognized the problem and is holding Exelon accountable for what's through from New York and Pennsylvania, and getting the EPA involved and making sure that they're holding them accountable, because it is definitely, you know, could be 50, 60, 70, 80% of the pollution is coming down through there. And I think that we have already done and will continue to do all the things that we can. We've picked the low-hanging fruit, but that's, you know, we will continue to do those things. There's not a whole lot more we can do other than continue, but support also those efforts and not relicensing that dam until, you know, Maryland Department of Environment is happy that they're going to take care of that and dredge or do whatever else they need to do up there. And I appreciate the Chesapeake Bay Foundation recognizing that and partnering with the governor and the administration.
Yeah, Chuck Callahan. Yes, it was sad to see, you know, a few months ago that the Conowingo Dam was releasing that stuff. With all the work that we've done so far, and what we've all noticed in the rivers, that the water is a little bit better clean, and then we got growth around the edge of the shores and stuff, and so you see seaweed and growth. So I think it's going to be, you know, our job to, you know, make sure that the state and Governor Hogan has support from us, and he's got support too, to go upstream and fight, because I really think that the stuff that has come down hasn't come down all the way yet, and we've got some things to contend with as a council. So, you know, I think it's going to be, like Mr. Pack said, it's going to be a heavy load on us, and we're just going to have to take it one step at a time, but we will have to deal with it, and we will look out for your best interest in that.
I think that, yes, the debris runoff, what's washed down is definitely a hazard. I think there's also the other cases that, things that we're finding out that maybe we didn't know about before, Phaceria. I don't know if we ever figured out the cause of that, or if we've just been able to diagnose it and treat it much faster. So, as I said earlier, my son was out today waist deep in the water catching tadpoles. I do feel that there is a risk there, but it's a calculated risk that I'm willing to take, and I do want to see the waters cleaner so I don't have to worry about that. That I can tell them, go ahead, fill your pockets up with tadpoles, go have fun, it's safe. So hopefully we've got great health care that's able to treat a lot of this, but I'd love to see some ways that we are able to clean up and find out exactly what that is.
So I believe that as a local council and local county, we can focus on our local rivers and our local tributaries that run into the Chesapeake Bay. And with that, again, I would say as a council, we need to make sure that we are engaging and bringing the subject matter experts to the table to help us formulate a plan to ensure that our rivers and our tributaries are clean. Certainly none of us want our children or our grandchildren going into waters that are not clean. One of the things that we have done in Anne Arundel, I'm not saying that it may pertain to Talbot County, but I'm just throwing it out there, and again, we need to talk to subject matter experts. But we created no discharge zones. We're passing legislation for that. I worked with the maritime industry in Anne Arundel County. So I do believe that there are things that can be done, but again, collectively bringing everyone to the table and discussing it with those that are the subject matter experts are important.
I want to start by saying that the Conowingo Dam issue is a serious one for the Bay, but it's not the biggest one that is facing our waterways. A lot of the pollution from the Conowingo is going straight down the Bay, and it's not necessarily going up into the headwaters of our waterways. And so the pollution that's happening in the headwaters of our waterways is our responsibility. And the short answer to why they're not swimmable is because we didn't invest in conservation when it would have made a difference, and we're not investing sufficiently in restoration to fix it now. Thank you.
Well, I do get to agree with that answer. The privilege of going last, Pete Lesher. Cleaning up the Susquehanna runoff is certainly going to help water quality if you are in Paw Paw Cove or Lowe's Wharf or Wade's Point. But it is not going to help water quality on Wye River or Tuckahoe or Tread Avenue River. We need to do that. And the answer to doing that is precisely the answer to the previous question. It has to do with adhering to best practices in cleaning up sewage, septics, stormwater runoff, and agricultural runoff. It's all of those same solutions, and it is those are indeed the causes for why our waters are not swimmable, as indeed they have not been after some of these heavy rainfall events. We have had friends who've come home with infections from cuts in these waters. This is urgent. We do need to tend to it.
Thank you. As a follow-up to the comments about the Conowingo Dam, Talbot County currently is not a member of the Clean Chesapeake Coalition, which includes Cecil, Kent, Queen Anne's, Caroline, and Dorchester counties. Do you believe Talbot should join that coalition? Please explain your answer.
Yes, and we've talked about it, and every time we have a MACO conference, Maryland Association of Counties, I do attend those meetings and have formed relationships with those leaders, and they're happy to see us there. There was a time when we weren't sure which direction they were going when we talked about investing the money into joining their coalition. But yes, I do think that we should actually officially join the Clean Chesapeake Coalition, but I just want you to know that I have attended all of the meetings twice a year at Maryland Association of Counties and kept up to date with all of their information, and they have done a tremendous job.
Yeah, Chuck Callahan, I would agree. I think with everything that's going on, that I think we need to join in the coalition and join that. I know it's going to take a little bit of money, but I think, just like we were just saying a few minutes ago, what we got coming towards us, we're going to need to handle. So we're going to need to partner up with the Bay Foundation. We're going to have to talk about it, and I really feel like it's. We haven't seen what the results of Harmon are right this second, but in years to come we're going to see some damage, and I think we should go ahead and join that and be part of it.
Yes, I do think that we should join that, the coalition. I think that showing a unified front with the counties here collectively will give us a bigger voice and being able to work together better.
And I would have to agree that partnership and collaboration and participating would definitely benefit Talbot County.
I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't researched the Clean Chesapeake Coalition. I don't know what their policies are. I do not know what they stand for. And I will not stand before you and say that I would either support joining it or not support joining it until I have researched it and spoken with others who know the information better than I do to see if this would be of a benefit to our community or not.
I oppose Talbot County joining the Clean Chesapeake Coalition. It is about shifting the blame away from our problems and pinning them on somebody else. It will make us poorer and some lobbyists and lawyers wealthier. We need to, if we have that money to spend, we need to spend it locally on our own cleanup right here at home.
I think Pete was looking on my page here. And that's where the council was exactly when it comes to joining the Clean Chesapeake Bay Coalition. And it was a difference in philosophy. They are a advocacy and lobbying initiative. And the council, we discussed this many times before, we thought it was better served to keep those dollars in-house, support what Ray Clark and his team was doing, partnering with the town of Easton in some initiatives. So we have discussed this several times, and Pete's absolutely correct. The council decided that it was better served to keep those dollars here locally. Now, what would the next council do? I don't know. We may look at it again and may decide to actually join the coalition. But we thought at the time that we discussed that it's better served to keep those dollars, keep your dollars locally, and put them to use here in Talbot County.
Thank you. Next question, we'll begin with Chuck Callahan. What does Talbot County need to be doing to prepare for sea level rise?
Wow, I'm not sure what to say that one. Build a wall. Huh? I couldn't hear you. All right, Chuck Callahan. Well, sea level rise, I guess probably where we would start is, and I think we have, is some of the code enforcement stuff. We've put one of the council things that we've done the last couple of years. We've done a flood ordinance, code informants that when we do building codes and stuff like that, we have to be at a certain level. There are several things that I think it is rising a little bit, but I think as far as being in construction and everything, I think it's going to be very important that we take a look at the codes and keep that sort of where it needs to be when it comes to code enforcement. Thanks.
I think an important initiative to pay attention to would also be runoff, because when you've got runoff and you have rising water, then it's impacted much greater and faster. So I would look for areas there that we could protect and slow down the runoff, but also as an insurance agent, I'm constantly dealing with the flood maps and looking at flood changes, and I think that that's something that we should address and look at going forward. It's always incredibly hard on a homeowner when the maps are changed and all of a sudden they have to come up with $800 in order to keep their house because they're forced to have flood insurance on it and the mortgage or the bank is forcing it. So I think if we can look ahead with that, then it'll protect more homeowners, but it'll also give us a better idea of what could happen and what would happen down the road.
So it seems that the Chesapeake Bay region is the third most vulnerable region to impacts of sea level rise. And with that, I could not find any research that determined that Talbot County had a vulnerability assessment done. So I think that we need to have an assessment done to come up with, again, goals and priorities to tackle sea level rise. And once that's done, we need to implement those goals and those recommendations of that assessment and that study to tackle sea level rise. We know it is a huge problem in Talbot County, but Dorchester has a worse problem than we do. But that assessment needs to be done so that we can tackle it.
In addition to the comprehensive plan, I have also reviewed the 2017 Hazard Mitigation and Community Resilience Plan and the Eastern Shore Climate Adaptation Partnership's White Paper. And there are good plans in place. There is good attention to this issue under our Emergency Services Department. It would be my responsibility as a council person to stay up to date on that, to support them in their efforts, and to support educating the community. I also want to mention that sea level rise is not the only risk that we face. We also face the potential for extreme heat, and if that is combined with low rainfall, of drought. And we also have the problems of flooding that are associated with extreme rain and soil saturation. All of those issues are addressed in these plans, and we just need to implement them.
Once again, Pete Lesher. My own employer, Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, is on the front lines of sea level rise and has been taking measures for the past 15 or more years to adapt, raising the grade of land, boosting structures onto higher foundations, and installing a living shoreline in place of a wooden bulkhead to better absorb wave energy. We need to take those measures in more places around the county. What can and should the county government do? As Chuck said, building codes are an important step so that any new construction, any reconstruction will meet more resilient flood codes or flood levels. And also we need to rebuild critical infrastructure, critical transportation infrastructure links that are vulnerable to flooding. If you think about storm evacuation of this area, we could have a lot of areas that are in deep trouble, and fixing a few of those links could go a long way in ensuring safety.
Well, this has been something that this council has put a lot of time and energy into it. Mary Kay Birdie, your planning officer, held many meetings over the last couple of years dealing with the floodplain maps, making sure that persons who have properties within that critical area got the information they needed to make the best decision when it comes to homeowner insurance and whether or not you needed flood insurance. Is the water rising? I would say yes. I remember about 10 years ago when we looked at redoing the Leeds Creek Bridge. One of the reasons that we were looking to do that was because not only was the bridge deficient in some areas, but also the increasing rise of the water and whether or not boats and barges could be able to get under the bridge at its current level. So I believe it is real. I believe we have taken some steps in education. We've taken some steps when it comes to building code. I believe Mr. Callahan put forth an introduction of a bill just the other night, which dealt with the height of boxes or utility boxes on piers to make sure if there is a flood that those boxes would not be impacted by that rising water. So we are very sensitive to this issue where we put some things in place already. Thank you.
The pleasure of going last is there's not a lot left to say, but I will say that Mr. Lesher works in the right place because if there's a flood, he's got a lot of boats around. Right? He can just float. Absolutely, we've done a lot with the building codes and making sure that they're the right height, and we have one of the lowest flood insurance rates because of the policies that we put in place. And while we might not have an actual vulnerability assessment, these new digital maps, we could see, and they showed us maps of the 1 year, the 10 year, the 100 year, maybe even 1,000 year floods, and we could see which properties go underwater, which is what made it available for the properties to go in and look and see, am I in the flood zone, am I out of the flood zone, what is my vulnerability? So maybe it wasn't official, but we could just, the picture's worth 1,000 words, so we were able to see that. And of course, where we direct, any of that new housing work, the market people are going to build where they want to build. But as far as directing more density and things like that, we don't want to build that in the most vulnerable areas of the county.
Thank you. This next question, we'll start with Frank DeVillio. What changes, if any, do you think should be made to village density regulations if sewer service is extended to villages?
I don't see how there would be any changes that would need to be made. I think by running sewer, I think it's not being run so that we can develop areas. It's being run so that we can clean up what's in those areas and clean up out and get rid of the septic systems.
So again, the sewer that's being run should not be a open ticket for development. So changing the density is not something that we want to do because we really don't want an open ticket for development. So the answer would be no.
The village zoning density is 1 residence per acre. It should remain there for all the reasons that my colleagues have said. We do not want the extension of sewer to be an excuse or an opportunity for higher intensity development, which has the potential to undermine the benefit of the sewer in terms of helping to clean up our environment.
Keeping village density low in the code gives us a big advantage, and that advantage is the transfer of development rights to ensure that when these do develop, that development can be concentrated and we can have permanent set-asides of green space that help keep villages in the character of a village that is small. In other words, the concern in the end here, in the end product, is not so much village density, but quantity. How large, how many residences are we going to get there? And by keeping the regulation at 1 per acre, we can ensure that with the allowable land, we can ensure that we have set-asides around, permanent set-asides around our villages, just as we do around our towns with the green belting.
John, could you read the question for me again? I just want to make sure I'm answering.
What changes, if any, do you think should be made to village density regulations if sewer service is extended to villages?
I would say none. I mean, at the current rate 1-to-1 with the homes that you currently have in villages plus the open lots, there's enough potential growth there in many of our villages. One of the things we put forth in our current plan is to go through is to implement a 3-village system where you would have your village hamlet, your village residential area, and your village mixed area, which is part residential and part commercial. So we certainly understand that villages are different. Not every one of our 22 villages are the same. There are some that, for example, Tillman, that has its own sewer system that will be able to handle moderate growth. There are other villages like Claiborne, which are strictly residential areas that probably will not be able to handle additional growth. So if you look at the open lots that you currently have, you look at those mapping, plus the homes that are already there, no changes really need to be made. Just go ahead and build out what you have.
Absolutely. We took 7 years to get to 1-to-1. I think we've had interim density since my first year on the council, because it did used to be 4-to-1 in every village. And as Mr. Pack said, we have the 3 different flavors of villages, the village mixed, the village hamlet, which is in between, and the village residential. And infill is the way to go. And even though you might see and say, well, it's not a different character, we've got a lot of 1/4 and 1/2 acre parcels that are currently in the village, wouldn't that be maintaining the character of the village? But we already have enough down there, and I think, I definitely know that 1-to-1, we put a lot, years and years, and this is what the people have said that they want. Our planning commission and our planning staff and the council got to was 1-to-1, and I don't want to see anything different. I don't want to come in later and do overlay zones and things like that, or do special exceptions. I think we've got plenty of places for infill and keeping it at 1-to-1 for sure.
Yes, Chuck Callahan, I would agree. I think the council has gone through a lot in the last year to get it to where it is, to 1-to-1. Just several weeks ago was a big accomplishment that we all agreed that running that sewer line is not going to trigger any sprawl or any type of village growth, so to speak. But it is going to help that, like you say, 22 villages, that these villages do have some type of, like Bosman and Nebbit, once they get their sewer, that it creates a better and royal sort of environment for the community. It's for the community, it's for the clean water, it's for that community, not growth and pack people in there. And we've done that as a council. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Keisha Haith. How should Talbot County balance the preservation of farmland versus promoting solar and other renewable energy sources? Should there be limits on how much farmland can be redeveloped into solar farms?
So there are many farmers that decide to go with solar. And, you know, that is certainly their right because of the property owners. I think we have to be, you know, very careful with balancing property rights and preservation and the environment as well. So I believe that they need to be able to have a solar farm on their property if that's what they choose. And there are regulations already in place in regards to that, and we need to make sure that those regulations are implemented and they are within those regulations.
The county leadership has jumped into this issue early and set limits on the amount of solar development that can happen in the county by acreage. Once that is used up, that's the end of solar fields in the county. I support that decision and would support maintaining it.
There's no doubt that that utility scale solar can be character changing for the landscape, and therefore I support those recent changes in Talbot County. It is more expensive, but what we need to channel solar development toward rooftop and toward places where we already have the development infrastructure, rather than large swaths of the Talbot County landscape. It is distributed power. Distributed power generation is something that is valuable to us. It makes us more resilient as a community to have distributed power generation. So we do need to encourage this, but we also need, like any other form of development, to be careful about where we put it.
Yes, I would agree. I think we've already addressed this as a council. We've already enacted legislation that would limit the number of solar fields that can be built in Talbot County. I believe anything over 5 acres would fall into the state regulation that would be considered a utility, which would not be governed by the county. I believe it's 5 acres or greater. So anything under that, we do have control over as far as how that is used here in Talbot County. We've already passed that, I believe, last year, that will control where those solar fields will go. And if you look at the mapping, most of the time they want to be where the infrastructure is already laid out, where there's already cabling they can tap into. So there's not a lot of places here in the county that a large solar field under 5 acres could probably go into, because you just don't have the infrastructure for it. So we're kind of limited in that way as well. But we did pass legislation, if you go back and look, that already looks at the balance of the environment and the solar field industry.
One of the interesting things is when I start going to Annapolis every Wednesday during their legislative season, besides being fearful of what they might come up with, well, one of the things they were going to come up with, along with the Maryland Public Service Commission, was not allowing the counties to decide what was appropriate for our counties. That's something that we fight all the time, is that they mandate things and we know our own backyard much better. So when I found out that that was what they were going to do, I did propose that legislation, and I'm very, very grateful to the council for supporting the limiting of acres, because once it's gone, it's gone, because we do want to have our farms. It is the greatest land use here in Talbot County, and I think we all want to preserve what that looks like. And you know, while alternative energy is very important, we don't want it taking up our entire landscape in Talbot County. So I think we really did a good job on that one.
Yeah, Chuck Callahan again. Yes, a couple of years ago, when we put this board together, we did a really good job and studied what Talbot County wanted. So when we come up with the regulations with land and everything, I think that was really good for us. And I don't think anybody wants to bash, going solar. But, you know, like Pete was saying, I'd rather see it myself on the houses and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, I really would rather not see it up against the road. I don't want to see it on farms, to tell you the truth. But, you know, we've limited, we've done a good job with it. I think it's slowed down in the last couple of years. It was hot there for a while, now it's slowed down a little bit. So, but we've done a good job for Talbot County to sort of keep it contained under a strict regulation. And I think our planning and zoning has done a really good job to tell us, you know, if there's anything going on that we need to know. Thank you.
Frank Tabilio, sorry, I think that's the first time I've said my name. So I believe in solar, it's clean, I like it, you know, the farmers have the right to put it on their farms. I think Talbot County has done a good job of the regulations, and I also appreciate the people who've put down the panels and have put down the flowers underneath of them and the grasses for the bees, and I wish Jennifer was here to tell us more about bees and her honey. But nature is able to work around it, and it's clean, and the farmers are able to use it. We've got the infrastructure set up for it, so I do like it. And just like anything, I think that it's going to change a lot over the next few years, just as it has. Panels have become smaller and more efficient, and so I think that it may become an issue that really isn't an issue. But I do think it's a good balance, and I'm happy that we have it. And just like Chuck and everybody said, it has its place, and I think that's where we should keep them.
Thank you. If any audience members have questions, please write them on your note cards now and get those in. We need those in soon so I can review those and determine the next 2 or 3 questions we're going to have. Next question will be with Naomi Hyman. Bed and breakfast uses are allowed in Talbot's residential zones. However, to obtain a bed and breakfast use certificate from Talbot County, a B&B in a critical area cannot be closer than 500 feet to another, and the structure had to exist prior to August 13th, 1989, the same date the critical area law passed. Should this same restriction be placed on short-term rentals when located in the critical area?
Well, I haven't gone quite that deep into the weeds yet. My inclination would be to have short-term rentals have the same regulations as bed and breakfasts, but I haven't researched it enough to give an informed opinion at this point.
It does certainly seem odd to be more permissive in the requirements for short-term rentals than for bed and breakfasts. That said, we're dealing with what is on the face of it a fairly odd regulation. I do see the short-term permitting of short-term rentals as a separate issue from the critical area, and probably those two items ought to be divorced in the code. I have made my statements on the short-term rental. We've struggled with this in the town of Easton. We came up with with a compromise solution that was a bit more restrictive than what the county came up with in its recent passage. We are going to have time to see what this looks like. We are going to be setting up, the county is going to be setting up a new board to regulate these short-term rentals. It is probably opportune for the next council to take a fresh look, yes, I see, okay, at the regulation of short-term rentals.
So the question is whether or not the 500-foot separation that is used in the critical area should also apply to short-term rentals within that same zone?
Yes, and the structure had to exist prior to August 13th,
I
1989.
really can't answer that question without basically going into it, whether or not the distance between those the homes or the year in which the home was built factors into the use at all. I really don't see any sense into it myself, but again, I don't know enough to really go into and answer that question.
Short-term rentals has been one heck of a conversation the last couple of months. And I think that, yes, it needs to have some restrictions because with a bed and breakfast, at least you've got the owner on site who's going to take care of their property and make sure that their guests aren't doing things that they shouldn't do in the critical area. But when you have a short-term rental, there's nobody on site. And we want these visitors to come. We want the tourists to come. But if they're staying in a short-term rental that happens to be on the water, they don't understand what the critical area is. They don't understand why you have to take care of it. So I think that probably would have been a good idea to have some restrictions. I think I proposed some other ways that we might have been able to restrict the short-term rentals. It's a much larger conversation than just the critical areas. It's, it's neighborhoods and should the owner be on site and a lot of other things. But if you've got a short-term rental and there's no owner there and the people are here visiting and they don't understand what it is that's critical to us, then I think you should probably have that same restriction as the bed and breakfast.
Chuck Callahan, yes. Short-term rentals was definitely a hot topic. But I think that what the council has done is putting a committee together. We put a bunch of rules together. It will be out in the newspaper. We are going to be advertising for people to be on the board. We've taken steps to really try to reel all this in. I probably, and as you know, a lot of people did follow it. I sort of wanted to back that off to the side a little bit and restudy it a little bit more, but hey, well, I think what's going to happen in the next 6 months or so when we put the committee together and the next council sees it, we can tweak things that are working and not working. But I think it's the way to go right now, and then that way, things that are in place now that aren't working, we'll change it. That's what we'll do.
Frank DeVillio. I do not think that by labeling a property that's in the critical area and using legislation to prevent that from being a short-term rental, I don't think that's fair to the landowner.
So as everyone has stated, short-term rental has been a hot topic of discussion right here in this room. But as Chuck and other members mentioned, with the committee, I think would be an opportune time to visit this particular question and determine whether or not that needs to be applied at that time.
Yeah. Thank you. The next question will start with Pete Lesher. What role can and should the county council play in the development of Easton Point area?
The county is absolutely at the table for the Easton Point conversation. It has been at the table along with the town of Easton because, for several reasons. One, only part of Easton Point is annexed now. Significant parts of it are in the county, and the county government itself is one of the property owners and has a county park, the public boat ramp in Easton Point. The county absolutely needs to be part of the conversation for Easton Point, and I'm very happy to see that, to report that in fact the county staff has been heavily engaged in all those discussions up to this point. It should continue that way.
He's absolutely correct. We are property owners there at Easton Point. We have been at many meetings, if not council, staff members, planning officers, Ray Clark and other members of his staff have been there as well. We want to make sure that we are apprised of what's going on down there. I think we only annexed 6 properties first time, six properties. So there's still much of the point that is not annexed that still falls under county control as far as zoning. So we are at the table. We have been there. We do own property there, and we want to make sure we keep an eye on what the town is up to. So.
Again, I'll continue that sentence. Absolutely. As Easton's only waterfront, I would love to see something like we have in Oxford with the beautiful park. We don't need more retail. We don't need more development. You know, with all those shopping centers that have been built in Easton, it's robbing away from downtown. The minute you put more retail down there, then you start to take away from the downtown, which is so lovely. I love, downtown Easton, and I want it to stay, vibrant. But I would love to see us put some actual dollars, yes, you can quote me on that, into making our landing gorgeous. I don't want to move our landing. I want to take our parking lot. I would love to have that be a park and some green space, move the parking back, maybe a couple, a restaurant or two, but I don't want to see a whole bunch of townhouses and housing development right down there, talking about land sinking, maybe the sea level would rise and eat everything up. But I think that we need to keep it as a park and something for everybody to enjoy and go take a picnic lunch and sit and enjoy the beautiful sunset.
Chuck Callahan. Yeah, it's been great working with the town and everything. Yes, it's been a hot topic at Eastern Point. It's hard to believe that not much has happened, okay? I think that it should happen. I think, like Laura said, it'd be nice to have some green space. It'd be nice to have a restaurant. It's really hard to believe that Easton, as beautiful it is, doesn't have a restaurant on the water. So I would, I'm all for sort of, giving a restaurant there, getting some green space there, and working with the town. The town has several plans that we've looked at, and it's a lot of nice stuff. But I think it's a work in progress. I think it's a 20-year project. But I think this council is going to enjoy working with the town, and the town vice versa. And like Mr. Pack said, it's just going to be a work in progress and do what's the best thing for the town of Easton and the county.
Frank DeVillio. I think Easton Point's it's a very valuable asset for Talbot County. I think that we do deserve a seat at that table, and I want it to be a big table. I think now we're better prepared than ever. With Cassandra, she does a fantastic job with tourism. I think, with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, with the different groups around, we can have a large table, sit down and figure out the best use of that land, because right now it's certainly underutilized.
So yes, Talbot County and the town of Easton definitely needs to work together on the Easton Point project. However, I know that there are some constituents and some groups that have a concern in regards to the Easton Point development, and I do believe that those concerns need to be addressed, and one of which, what Laura has mentioned, is the lack of showing the connection between connecting the town of Easton, where downtown Easton is, to Easton Point. So that connectivity is very important. And as they go through the process, I think some of the concerns from citizens in Talbot County need to be heard and need to be recognized during this process.
I spent a number of years as a director at Evergreen Cove, now Evergreen, which is one of the properties on Easton Point. My mother is currently at Londonderry, so between these two I've spent a lot of time on Easton Point. It's not one thing. It is so many different aspects to that area, and it's a very small area with limited roads and vulnerable properties. There are neighborhoods there. There are businesses there, there is green space there. This is going to require sensitive development, and it's going to require bringing the wisest, as many as possible of the wisest minds, county and town, to come up with a solution that is going to improve our community rather than create challenges.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Corey Pack. Would you support legislation to limit the use of one-use plastic bags in Talbot County, or to mandate stores charging a fee for the bags?
Wow. I don't think I would go that far with mandating or outlawing plastic bags, having stores charge a fee. I know some areas in the state have, I believe Baltimore City has, and some of the larger municipalities have already use this as a way of limiting the number of bags that are going into, again, going down the drainage pipes and going into the rivers and waterways. I wouldn't go that far with it. I would hope that citizens are mindful enough and respectful enough to treat this area with the dignity that it deserves. As I mentioned quite a few times already, we have put these large bags over storm drain pipes that will collect those types of items
before they get into our waterways. So we have taken that effort in case persons miss the trash can and it does go into the street. We will catch that. But I'm not for banning plastic bags. I'm not for making businesses charge extra for plastic bags at this time.
Again, that's where Annapolis can get dangerous sometimes, and letting us do the things that we think are appropriate here, and Mr. Pack is correct. Some counties have done that in the state. I don't know if it's really working all that well. Stores could do that. Aldi's kind of a neat example because they don't provide any bags and they force you to take your own. And I think the awareness is out there, especially with straws these days, right? How do you drink a milkshake without a straw? I'm not sure. But no, I wouldn't support legislation. I think that that's just something that people have to, we recycle, and that's up to you guys. You have all these plastic bags in your house, just take them to the grocery stores with you, take them to Walmart with you. Don't make people legislate good behavior.
Yeah, Chuck Callahan, I like you. I don't know if I would support that either. I think it's up to the person to recycle it. I think, we have to. And the other aspect of it, it was cost, right, to pay for it, right?
Yes.
You
Mandate the stores.
mandate the store. Yeah, and I mean, I don't get a good feeling that you're mandated to pay for a bag. I'm not feeling that. It's just one more cost that we got to deal with, and you're already spending hundreds of dollars buying groceries. Now you got to buy your bags. I'm not feeling it. I feel like when you take the bag home, it's your responsibility to do what's right for it and put it in recycle, and not throw it in the proper trash.
Frank Sibilia, I agree. I don't think that we need to legislate that. I don't think that we should tell the grocery store that they need to charge more for that. It seems like the reusable bags have become much more popular. Many businesses are giving them away. Government entities, the library has great bags that they've given away at different times. Hopefully it will go away. Hopefully that we all tell our friends, get a reusable bag. Go to so-and-so who's got them for free this week. Go get those. I don't see the extra regulation actually making that big of a difference on it.
I would be extremely cautious in regards to mandating that specifically. I think we all try to be responsible. We recycle, and that is our individual responsibility to do that, and tread very lightly on mandating and additional regulations on community members.
I would be more inclined to incentivize than penalize. Many stores are already offering discounts if you bring your own bags. It's very hard to change human behavior. We seem to be slowly moving in that direction, but I am also somewhat concerned about mandating individual businesses to charge for bags.
We have a plastics problem. It is transforming our environment. It is transforming our oceans, and not for the better. And we need to take some really serious actions on this front. My own employer is seeking to eliminate the use of single-use plastics entirely. For catered events, that's a big challenge. But as much as I support all of those efforts, I also do not see a legislative ban on these bags as the appropriate solution for Talbot County, nor a store charge for them. We can get there. We need to use, I think, the carrot rather than the stick, and change behaviors in our society as a whole on this front.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Laura Price. Is sound pollution not also a way we are destroying our environment? How can the recent change to 65 decibels be defended? Sure. Is sound pollution not also a way we are destroying our environment? How can the recent change to 65 decibels be defended?
Well, fortunately, we didn't go to 65 decibels. We ended up at 60. But yes, I do believe that sound can become pollution. We talked a lot about music, and music isn't noise. That's true. When you're right there listening to the music, it's not. But when you get just a little bit away from it, and that was the argument that we heard from hundreds of people, that music becomes noise when you get far enough away from it. And certain types of the music or the sounds, you know, the bass, they carry a lot further. It carries a lot further when it's musical than if it's just somebody's voice. And so, yes, I'm hopeful that we can figure out a way to put these meters in place at these restaurants and these new event venues and restaurants, which we are going to allow outdoor music. But I think that allowing those uses and moving the decibels up, by the way, going to from 55 to 65 would have been twice as loud, and 60 is 50% louder. I think it was the wrong time to raise it, and hopefully we can get it back somehow.
You know, Chuck Callahan, I think when the council voted on that, I think we voted in the middle at 60. I think it was the right thing to do. Yes, there is some noise pollution, but I feel like once again, it's like the SDLs. I think we're going to have an enforcement officer now with a meter, so that will really help. Once again, I think, you know, it's a new regulation. We're going to see how it works, and I think we've covered all our bases in having people, having our enforcement officer regulate it. So I think we're going to be fine. So we're just going to have to see how it works, and it's not like the next council couldn't change it. This isn't, so to speak, set in stone. Something's not working, we'll have to relook at it and go from there.
I remember a few years back, light pollution was a big issue. A lot of people were talking about not being able to see the stars in town, and now noise pollution's kind of moved into that as well. To defend it, I don't see how that it's that big of an environmental issue. When you're inside of the town limits, I think there's a lot more environmental issues than just noise. Especially if you're thinking about wildlife and pollution, I don't see noise being as important as an issue that we should be addressing as even the paper and plastic bags and litter.
So, I'm definitely not a subject matter expert on noise. I don't know that it is an environmental concern, but I don't believe that coming to the meetings and the public hearings and listening to the public, that what the current council approved is what the public wanted. So I do believe that we need to definitely listen to the public, and it needs to be revisited.
I think noise pollution is pollution, and I think light pollution is pollution. I don't think that the increase in the acceptable limit of sound in the county is defensible. I was at most, if not all, of the hearings. The only people that I heard arguing for more outdoor amplified music and for higher sound limits were private interests or businesses. It's one of those situations where private benefit is putting a public cost on our community. I don't think it's defensible. If elected, I would work to overturn it.
This is a quality of life issue, and I also did not support the change. I was not convinced in this process, in the testimony, that the prosperity of the businesses who are asking for this change was contingent on that higher noise level. There are technological solutions to outdoor entertainment to contain sound better. Yes, it will cost more, but it can be done, and we can ensure better quality of life in our county.
Could someone tell me the biggest contributor to noise pollution in the county? Traffic. Traffic is the biggest contributor to noise pollution in the county. Several years ago, this county took initiative to reroute our trash trucks going to our landfill, take them away from residential property. So we took our trucks down 50, brought them back up Manadere Road, and took them away from person's home. Because traffic is the largest contributor to noise pollution in the county. Not your neighbor next door in his pool, not the guy up the street playing some music as he washes his car. It's traffic. I've lived near 50 and I can tell you, when the trucks come by, they're well over 60. Well over 60. When Ocean City has Motorcycle Week, boy, let me tell you, well over 60. And it wasn't businesses coming to the council and said, jack the noise up. That's not the truth. It was a group that was formed at the council's request to look at the noise level in the county. That committee was a bipartisan committee, came up with a recommendation of 60. That's where it came from. So it wasn't at the council's urging to say we need to jack up more music. It wasn't at a business urging to say jack up more music. It was the fact that noise pollution in this county, by and large, is 50. Now, if you can tell me how to deal with that, I'll be glad to listen to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pack. We have time, I believe, for one final question, and this will begin with Chuck Callahan. Do you oppose or support new expansions of fossil fuel extraction and uses in Maryland, such as the Delmarva pipeline now proposed in neighboring Caroline County?
Well, I don't know if I can answer that question because I don't really know a whole lot about that question, to tell you the truth. So I do want to answer one thing that Mr. Pack said. The committee that we had recommended 65. If we come down to 60, the council did.
The unanimous decision of the committee was 60.
Yeah, but they voted on 65, didn't they? As a split, yeah. So I thought as a council, we were in better shape and come down to a reasonable 60.
I too, I'm somewhat familiar with the pipeline. I did not know that they were planning to do any extraction here, and I would be hard pressed to agree to that. I would certainly want to see a lot more reports on that information than before I make any kind of informed answer to that.
I would have to say that I don't have enough research to answer the question, and nor am I familiar with what's going to happen in Caroline County. No.
Easton and Cambridge are currently already served by a natural gas pipeline, and we have reliable, affordable, clean, yes, fossil fuel energy in these municipalities because of that. This proposal would provide that same advantage to Denton and to other places. Part of it has been challenged on what it will do to the landscape, the construction of the pipeline, the scar across the landscape. I challenge you to find the scar on the landscape that's caused by the existing pipeline. There's much more to be learned about this, but at this point, I do not oppose that pipeline.
I don't know what Larry Porter and those guys are doing over in Caroline County, to tell you the truth. As Pete said, we already are supplied with a natural gas line coming into Talbot County. We're already capturing gas off the landfill. We capped it, and now Eastern Utility is capturing that gas and cleaning it up and putting it into tanks and selling it. So we're already in some way in the recycling of gas industry. Regarding what they're doing in Caroline County specifically, I guess I gotta grab Larry sometime and find out.
Yeah, I'm a little in the dark about that specific question as well, so I would defer until we can get more information on that. But if I have 45 more seconds, I will just touch on the makeup of the Noise Ordinance Task Force was a problem. And while I very much appreciate all the hard work that they did, they met 30, 40 times. You had the business owners who were asking for the outdoor amplified music. They didn't necessarily ask for 65. They didn't necessarily ask for 60. They asked for the ability to have outdoor music. And it was not a balanced group. And in the future, if I were to put a group together, I would have those business interests come in and testify, but I wouldn't make them a voting member. And I think that's where the noise ordinance went wrong.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the candidates for sticking with their time tonight. Thank the audience for their questions. And I'll introduce Jean from the League of Women Voters.
Welcome and thank you for coming. Thank you, candidates. It's wonderful that you were here, that you answered the questions, and that we learned a lot, didn't we, audience? You want to hand it? Thank you, John, for moderating and for calling the questions into a forum that the candidates could respond to. Thank you, audience, for being here, for asking questions and for participating. That's important. That's what democracy is dependent on. And so I want to let you know of upcoming opportunities for you to learn more. First of all, we do have a candidate forum for District 1 congressional candidates. It's coming up on Sunday, October 21st, right here in this room from 2 to 3:30. All three candidates for U.S. representative from District 1 will be here, and we invite you to come. Once again, that one's being run by the League of Women Voters of all 5 counties in the area, and you will have the opportunity to ask questions, so get ready. It's coming. We also want you to know about vote411.org. That's the League of Women Voters web-based system for looking at all of the candidates and all of the answers that they provide. Our guides that we produce don't necessarily give you everything that they offer, and they're not necessarily, the web base is more up to date than the guide is. To be honest, I just sent our voters guide for the general election. It's going to look like our primary guide. I just sent it to the printer tonight. It won't be out until Sunday, October 14th in the Star Democrat. That's the only place our league was able to put it this time around. So look for it there. And we will make it available after that date in other locations. But for now, look for it in the Star Democrat in the Sunday edition. And we want you to know about when you can vote. I think most of you here know that you can go for early voting. That starts Thursday, October 25th. 10 o'clock in the morning till 8 p.m. And it continues until 8 p.m. November 1st, right here at the Firehouse in Easton. Then we have the general election on November 6th, but that's not the only ways you can vote. You can also vote with absentee ballot. That you can either hand deliver to your local election board, or you can mail it in. Okay. That's what we have coming up. We are looking at doing a few other forums, but our league is kind of limited. So I want you to take advantage of what is available, and hope to see you at the polls. And if you appreciate what we do here in the forums and with the guides, feel free to make a donation. We have a bucket out there in the front, because all of our work is done with volunteers, and it is through donations. There are several donors here in the audience tonight, and I want to thank them personally, because this is the reason I joined the league. I couldn't vote without information that I know is not biased, that is coming from the candidates, and that's what the League of Women Voters offers. It's not that we're required to be nonpartisan, it's what we believe in. We believe in voting, and we believe in providing information so everyone can make an informed decision. So thank you for coming tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and thank you, Hillary, for organizing, and for our volunteers that helped. The congressional is October 21st, that's a Sunday.
We get somebody to hold them.
2 to 3:30 in this room.
seen, all that you know. But I believe in something untold, and I gotta know if I'm going